When I've done volunteer programs in my past career acts, I often think of outdoor activities, planting
Mhm.
trees, cleaning up garbage, um, things like that. But the pandemic has forced a lot of people indoors. So, how has that changed the act of volunteering?
Yeah. You know, this is one of those things where I don't know if you've heard about companies in this pandemic who are trying to go more digital. They had maybe a 10-year plan to get on
Mm,
track with the digital economy, and then all of a sudden it was just fast tracked. It kind of feels that way with volunteerism to me. Obviously, everybody wants to be able to go out and do the stuff outdoors. They want to do everything you normally think of when you think of how you volunteered, but they've also been trying to figure out how to engage remote workforces and call centers and people that don't have access to those outdoor or regular activities. So this has fast tracked the excuse me, the intention to go a little bit more virtual with volunteering. I think the problem that they've faced as they've been forced to go a little bit more virtual is finding that the nonprofit infrastructure isn't really there. They're, organizations, some of them were set up to receive virtual volunteers already. I think of places like Missing Maps or TutorMate who are already all online, and they've gotten this huge influx of activity this year. And then organizations that were totally in person, food banks and others like that, they're struggling to keep their strong volunteers and their corporate relationships and their donor partners. And I think that's where actually skills are a key component of all types of volunteering, whether it's virtual, in person, whether it's defined as skills based or not.
mm,
Employee volunteers are they're trying to learn in this new virtual environment how to scope opportunities with nonprofits in a way that's a genuine partnership, and how to listen to them, and how to keep the organization's mission sort of balanced with what the company hopes to get out of it. Again, teaching interesting skills that come with trying to do things not just in volunteerism virtually, but as a company more virtually. And so there's this need because of the pandemic for volunteer leaders to know how to do these things a little bit differently than they did before, and how to facilitate virtual teams. It's pretty resume worthy skills.
mm.
And most people, I don't know about most people, but a lot of people are kind of bad at them before. But the pandemic has definitely forced this to the forefront. How are we going to do this in a way that's meaningful to nonprofits and that employees can actually facilitate in a meaningful way?
I imagine you get involved with the ideation where you sit down with your clients. Well, you can't sit down face to face, but on a Zoom call and help them unpack the opportunity, right? I would imagine part of your skill set is getting them engaged so that it goes beyond strategy into actual tactical plan and campaign plan. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to be thinking about all of those things, and then how it, like I said earlier, can scale and be strategic and even contribute to what the company wants overall.
So let's talk about skill. And
Okay.
I think about volunteerism on a higher level, and I think about skill-based volunteerism. And we talked in pre-interview about Deloitte. I'm very familiar with the Deloitte program because they deploy people with a lot of financial and consulting skill in the field
Mhm.
to use those math skills to help people who perhaps don't have financial literacy or have been indigent and need very basic money skills to not spend money on drugs and alcohol, but actually on saving money so that they can build a life for themselves. So that's skill based, but that's not all of volunteerism. And I would imagine that can also mean developing your own skills if you don't have them and using volunteerism as you just said, a resume builder. I'm wondering if you could help
Hmm.
the audience unpack the difference between the two.
This is a very interesting question for me to talk with professionals about, because there's this whole continuum of people that when they think about doing the thing they do at work in a volunteerism setting, they either love that idea and they think that's really cool, or they're like, please do not make me go and do accounting in my volunteer time when I have to do accounting all day long. So it's an interesting balance depending on people, where people are, and what I tend to refer to as their volunteer journey. They're
Right.
really going to respond to that one way or the other. In our experience, companies can get a little bit obsessed with both types of skills-based volunteering that you mentioned. It's just easier to sell to the C-suite because it's easier to say we're going
Right.
to get business benefits from this program when it's skills-based. Easier to say that than when you're referring to more traditional types of volunteering or civic engagement. So the type you described at Deloitte tends to be purpose-oriented,
Mhm.
huge company trend lately talking about being a purpose-driven company. Um, and that's using the skills you already use at work for good.
Mhm.
A lot of companies will refer to that as pro bono volunteering, similarly to how lawyers will use pro bono time to contribute to the community. Um, this is in our experience, typically about trying to inspire employees to see how meaningful their skills can be to other people, and then also give them sort of a non-threatening environment where they can hone their skills. So they're still developing and growing by doing this thing out there in the community. But the other type, which was using volunteering to develop new skills and grow as leaders, um, that one is a given. I mean, I think it should be a given. If your volunteering and giving program as a company is strategic to any degree, all of that kind of volunteering should be framed to develop skills and raise up leaders. And having said that, it's also important, I think, to offer like a first stage space. We'll talk about the three stages of the volunteer journey. A first stage space is where anybody who's never experienced volunteerism to any degree before can just show up, see, discover volunteering for the first time, and decide if it's even their thing. And then from there, companies can provide levels of volunteering that help employees progress, help them further discover and commit and develop those skills. But you really want to have volunteer programs with those options, whether it's getting to know the program for the first time, getting to know the idea of volunteering for the first time, developing skills and developing as a leader. And again, I think all types of volunteering, even if you're planting trees, needs to have elements of leadership development, project management, guiding others, public speaking, looking for how to develop others out there in the
Mhm.
field, things that make great managers. That all needs to be worked into a strategic program. And then you can go all the way from there to pro bono volunteering, to people that are highly committed over a long period of time to pretty intensive volunteering where they use their skills out there in the community like Deloitte does.